the thing I would stress, Russell, is investor myself. The kind of three things I looked at this project that I really liked is the permitting pathway to production, where it is with the infrastructure kind of being in place, its legacy, a big coal mining area that has lost a lot of coal production, so kind of jobs, contract miners, those sort of things. And then I would say the Department of Defense funding.
Hello, and welcome to TSN's ASX Investor Podcast, StockTales. I'm your host, Russell Katz. All thoughts, opinions, and analysis expressed on this show should not be used as an excuse to avoid you doing your own research, because remember, nobody ever made any money being lazy. More detailed disclaimers available at the end of the show, but for now, let's dive into today's episode featuring American Rare Earths, ticker code ARR. Here with us today for American Rare Earths is CEO Donald. American Rare Earths has recently transitioned from an explorer to moving towards production with the scoping study just released. The scoping study was really interesting as it showed that the project has the potential to start mining within 1 to 3 years. This is very exciting for two key reasons. One, the project is based in the United States, Wyoming to be specific, and the project also focuses on magnetic metals, the rare earths that everybody seems to care about, specifically because of their use with ESG technologies like windmills, but also with their high demand for military applications. As a matter of fact, we learn in this podcast that American Rare Earths did have a bit of a research partnership with DARPA. DARPA being one of the US military's primary research and development arms. So without further ado, let's move on to the podcast. And here to tell us all about American Rare Earths is Donald. Donald, welcome to StockTales.
Hi, Russell. It's great to be on today with you.
Thanks. So American Rare Earths has recently experienced quite the transition. You guys really moved from exploration stage to scoping study stage to getting the market really excited about a fairly short turnaround, hopefully, towards production. Can you just give me a real quick, brief overview about where you guys are in the United States and what's got the US so excited about your project?
Sure. I started August 1st, so it was a pretty seamless transition. Chris Gibbs is still on the board, was an Aussie director. I think the board made the strategic decision last year that they wanted to bring on an American team and sort of really push forward the Halleck Creek project. It's a flagship project. It's about 2 hours north of Denver, Colorado, in the state of Wyoming. Wyoming kind of being the best mining jurisdiction or the most friendly sort of mining jurisdiction in the U.S. It's truly a tier 1 jurisdiction, and they wanted to have the development team in place to kind of push this from an exploration project into a development project, and here we sit.
Fantastic. So you guys have are kind of done it at really the perfect time. America's looking to onshore a lot of strategic domestic manufacturing with a specific focus on military hardware. Look, I know magnet metals, which is what the rare earths that you guys are really focusing on, have far more than just military applications. But it really is fantastic and surprising at just how perfectly you guys have timed this from a historical standpoint. I don't know if you could have done it better.
Yeah, there's undoubtedly been a lot of work, before I arrived, but particularly the last kind of 7 months around what we've got into. It's funny that you mentioned, well, not funny, but it's illustrative that you mentioned that magnetic rare earths are certainly a hot topic. We're very blessed in that about 27% of our total rare earths are magnetic. So over 25% neodymium, praseodymium, and the balance being terbium and dysprosium. So we've certainly captured the hearts and the imagination of not only the investment public, but I would say the government support as well here in the U.S.
Can you talk a little bit more about that government support? When we see exploration companies move to production, there's often concerns around whether mining permits are a thing. But I know that on especially state land, there isn't as much of an issue with that in the United States as many people might initially believe for a more developed country.
Yeah, you undoubtedly would have heard of Senator Manchin talking about the need for permitting reform in the U.S. and how difficult it is. A lot of the I guess, friendshoring in Australian/US relationships has been around this idea that it takes a very long time to stand up a mine or permit a mine in North America. That really has been our focus since we've come in of prioritizing or looking at state land, state private kind of combination. And that is, you're able to do something, in a 1 to 3 year period instead of a 10 to 15 year period. And that really has been our focus. And it just so happens that the geology kind of cooperated in as much as our higher grade material is there. And it also really helps that it's sort of near zero strip ratio. So if you go out with an XRF gun at the surface and kick around the loose vegetation of sorts, that you'll get 4,000, 5,000 parts per million really at the surface. So it's much more of a stone quarry permit than it is, a large copper mine. Like the scoping study we just did was about 400 acres of disturbance, which is a very tight, small, compact footprint.
Yeah. Well, I reviewed that scoping study, and the 1 to 3 years was really one of the main things that kind of jumped out at me. I mean, this isn't, as you said, this isn't a 10, 15 year half a generation, then we'll start seeing production, kind of knock on wood type scenario. This is a really immediate production for what really is an immediate need. So can you talk a little bit about the reception that you've received from industry in the United States? How excited are they about this project?
Yeah, I would say our focus has really been at the state level to this point in terms of making sure we can kind of move along. Generational is truly what the asset has the potential to be. When I cut up the pit shells, I'm a mining engineer, so that was the most fun part of the project was looking at where you wanted to mine. And really at that level, we had 108 years of mining. So it really lets you kind of pick where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do. I guess the thing I would stress, Russell, is investor myself, the kind of 3 things I looked at this project that I really liked is the permitting pathway to production, where it is with the infrastructure kind of being in place, its legacy, a big coal mining area that has lost a lot of coal production, so kind of jobs, contract miners, those sort of things. And then I would say the Department of Defense funding. So as you ask about support, so DoD in collaboration with DARPA is the advanced research arm of DoD, and they funded some beneficiation and process R&D work for us. And that's really where the breakthrough on the metallurgy came. So I think a lot of people would say, okay, this is 4,000 parts per million, and it's in a granite, so it's a hard rock. And I think if you looked at the study, the low cost really are derived from that work that DARPA had done and through Lawrence Livermore National Lab. And that was the pre-concentration work. So crush it, mine it, grind it up, and then you can separate this stuff very similar to lithium or coal with gravity or dense media separation, and you get a 10-to-1 upgrade. So something that's 4,000 parts per million very quickly and very cheaply becomes 4%. And then, the last leg of this is that it leaches very similar to a clay-hosted deposit rather than a hard rock. So there's no cracking involved. There's no 1,000 degrees a cracking circuit. So, modest CapEx, very low OpEx. I would say the reception has been, it's a very compelling project. And as you said, the right place, right time kind of mix.
So the DARPA connection is very interesting. I mean, DARPA is extremely famous. I think that it's safe to say that U.S. military dominance over the last number of decades if there is a single entity that you have to thank for that, it's probably DARPA. So that's really
DARPA. I guess I should have mentioned if it is an Australian kind of a listener pool. So think of stealth technology, think of the internet, and who knows, in a few years you might think about us.
Yeah, and lasers. Don't forget lasers. Yeah. DARPA's very heavily responsible for that. But moving back to the really interesting comparison that you made. So the hard rock, it made me think immediately of that slide you have in the recent scoping study presentation, where you were comparing hard rock to clay deposits, and you were basically saying that you guys have a much more environmentally friendly method as well. Now, I know that not all investors will care about that, but from a permitting and an industry basis, especially in the U.S., I think that it is definitely something that people will care about.
Well, and particularly if you think about DOE and grants and those sort of things, if you think long and hard about what we're trying to do with the energy transition, with moving to electric vehicles and windmills kind of being the two primary applications for permanent magnets, I mean that is a clear move to using less carbon intensive energy. And so when you can direct leach something rather than heating some of your gas up to 1,000 degrees, it's obviously a much better footprint kind of from that ESG credentialing and grant and DOE type approach. So I would say, yes, I agree completely, Russ.
Yeah. So I guess moving on to, you specifically, you mentioned some of the things you were so excited about. What was the first thing that grabbed you about this project when you first heard about it?
Where it was. I have in the past been chief commercial officer and permitted and operated, large scale mining operations in Wyoming. I've more recently been in Canada. Canada has really become very challenging from an extractive industry kind of point of view. And it was really a good opportunity to get back to kind of my roots here in Western US, in a jurisdiction where the government is happy to have you. They're happy to have the jobs. They're happy to be supportive of the project. The cheapest electricity in the United States. You kind of have that labor pool. You're in the delineated Inflation Reduction Act for disadvantaged coal communities. So you're getting government support instead of government resistance, and that really is something that appealed to me.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And actually, just on that, the old coal facilities and the communities that used to rely on that. So labor really isn't a problem for you in the slightest. I know that we've seen in.
No, it's great. I'd say labor isn't a problem, and I touched on it earlier, but really infrastructure was another big selling point in terms of you're right at the intersection of where Burlington Northern, Santa Fe, the Warren Buffett Railroad runs north-south to Texas. And then you're in Union Pacific kind of crosses right at the project too. So that's towards California. So you kind of have access to reagents and everything you need in bulk fashion. It just the interstate highway system, the great thing is we only have 2 surface landowners and that have been supportive of the project and have those agreements in place. So it's very nice, the simplicity of it. And really now our focus is on metallurgy and making sure that the metallurgy kind of works outside of the lab.
Well, I think you also just named I just want to highlight that. I think you just name checked the 2 largest railroads in the United States. So I think, for our Australian listeners, I think that's something that I really want to underline. We hear a lot with different exploration projects that are moving to mining projects about capacity. I mean, you really just kind of basically said you have unlimited capacity. Obviously, nothing's unlimited, but I mean, that's serious infrastructure in place.
I would say a lot of times, infrastructure is the thing that kill these projects. Infrastructure and permitting. I think one of the other big advantages is we don't. We've done a lot of drilling on federal land, so we've kind of gone through the sage grouse, bird and environmental species, and raptors and migration patterns and indigenous / Aboriginal studies and all the archaeological stuff. So permitting is undoubtedly a huge advantage to this project, and the infrastructure probably being a close second.
Yep, absolutely. So what you guys are OTC listed, and obviously you're still primary listed on the ASX. I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the reception that you received from U.S. Financial institutions, specifically with your OTC listing.
Yeah, it's kind of been a focus for me being here in North America, trying to drive volume. I'm very pleased to say that really in 2024, we've had very close to the same amount of volume now on a daily, monthly, quarterly basis on the OTC as what we've had in Australia. So it really helps that kind of liquidity while you guys are sleeping. The stock is being traded here. So it's sort of doubled the volume. We raised money back in February and brought on some North American folks as part of that pool of investors. I'm very proud of what the team has accomplished and what we've kind of pulled off. I mean, we're in a period where rare earth equities are probably, if you look at them on a consolidated basis, probably off 40+% year on year. And the prices of neodymium and praseodymium are probably off 50+%. And I don't know what the stock did today, but it closed. We're just getting up against the close here in the US, but we're probably up, double this year and have did a raise in the midst of a down cycle. So I've said this pretty consistently that good projects get built in down markets. And for us, then you kind of see others that have hit a wall and are kind of husbanding cash and not getting much done, and we're charging full speed ahead.
I gotta tell you, I can't think of a better place to end it. That sounds like a fantastic conclusion.
Yeah, thanks, Russell.
Well, Donald, thanks for coming on to StockTales. We really enjoyed
Yeah,
having
thanks for having me.
It's a fantastic.
I'm sorry I missed you on the trip to Australia, but I also appear a bit jet lagged because I just got home. I had my kind of 2-week tour of all things Australia and a bit worn out. So it's great to see you. And sorry I missed you.
Well, next time you're in Australia, we'll definitely catch up. And I think that Australians are definitely very pleased to hear that you do make fairly regular trips, actually, to the country.
Yeah, and I tell people this all the time. Like I love our OTC listing, and I I love the investor pool here. But Australians lived through really Linus being a baby to where it is now. And if you look back 8, 9, a decade ago, Linus is not dissimilar to us in terms of market cap. And you guys saw how that company came to be. So Australians are so much more advanced than the North American market of just understanding rare earths and what the art of the possible is. So it's really good talking to them and understanding how these companies have evolved, and that really allows me to kind of educate the folks on this side of the ocean.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Donald, for coming on StockTales, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Thanks, Russell.
Thank you for tuning into the disclaimer. Investing money into capital markets involves risk and could result in losing money. The people on this podcast express their own views and may or may not have been paid to appear. Only you can determine if a particular investment is right for your portfolio. Always do your own research before buying or selling any security or investment. Remember, past performance is no guarantee of future results. One should always view any investment with their own personal risk tolerance, liquidity, tax situation, or anything else pertinent in mind. No person on or related to this podcast was making any offer or solicitation.